Welcome, hotshots, to the Firepower X self-command portal. Here you can find the industrial strength tools that you need to dominate your personal and professional wellness. My name is Jess. I'm boss lady here at Firepower X, former firefighter, and your host for today's webinar. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce our special guest today, Chief Mike West with Front Range Fire Rescue. He's a fourth-generation firefighter, a chief fire officer, a teacher, and a dedicated student of the fire service for what I hear is coming up on 42 years. And Chief West is committed to helping the next generation of public servants in preparing for leadership and personal wellness. And you may also recognize him from our October conference, where he was one of our featured experts on the Renegade Wellness Panel because of all the cool initiatives that he has been doing in his department. So welcome back, Chief West. We're so happy to have you back in the spotlight today.
Thanks, Jess. 42 years is accurate. I started when I was 4. And, so you can do the math.
Well, yeah, if you're fourth generation, I mean, you were in the womb doing this stuff, right?
just about. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. We're so glad to have you here, Chief. And one of the resounding pieces of feedback that we got at the conference was people's dying curiosity to hear more about the 8 dimensions of wellness that you kind of teased. Peggy Swarbrick, her philosophy on wellness, and kind of the 8 areas. So I know this is kind of an unconventional place to start, but I would love to start there. And if you could just explain to us what it is and kind of why you onboarded it, why is it important to you?
Great question. It really is. And Jess, first, thanks for all that you're doing for firefighter wellness and what you're doing to build resiliency among our sisters and brothers out there. So thanks for that and for having me. When Front Range, when we started to go down the road of defining our culture and what it was we wanted to be, and we started when I got here 5 years ago, Front Range had a fantastic culture. Our difficulty was when you asked someone to define it, they couldn't do it. They couldn't put it in words. They just said it was great. And so we spent a lot of time, and ironically, we started in the beginning of 2020 and then continued through the pandemic to define it. And we used all the buzzwords that I think many fire departments do. We talked about our customer service, our financial well-being, taking good care of the taxpayers' resources and taking care of each other and training and being professional. Mm-hmm. But in the end, and it was just perfect timing, one of the things that we really wanted to do was talk about how each of us could do a better job of taking care of ourselves. And firefighters, we all know from 42 years ago, although I have some funny stories about what it was like 42 years ago when we talked about our physical well-being. Mm-hmm. We didn't really have METS tests. We had more of the bologna sandwich eating contests. But we've always known that the physical aspect is important, and we really need to, bring up our mental health. And along those lines, I think that we needed something just not physical and mental, but really what are the other components that make sure that we're really well balanced. And so we looked for tools and we landed on the 8 dimensions of wellness. And certainly if your listeners go out there and what are the dimensions of wellness, they'll find 7 and they'll find 8 and they'll find 10 and they'll probably find more than that. But we landed on the 8, which is species F is kind of the acronym, and I'm an acronym guy, so I kind of like that. And we start with the social aspects, the physical aspects, the environmental aspects, our career aspects, our intellectual, our emotional, spiritual. Financial. And sort of the example I would use with that is if everything is great in your life, but you're not doing a great job of managing your own personal finances. Firefighters sometimes, for some firefighters, and this isn't for the case for all of them, but this might be the highest paying job that they've had at their 25-year-old life. And now all of a sudden they get a nice paycheck and they get that big raise when they get off of probation. And the first thing firefighters do is they go out and they buy that brand new big F550 with, big tires and all that. And now they're a slave to that car payment. And now they're trying to get every single dime out of the paycheck. And now they're not putting aside for their retirement or some of their other needs. And next thing you know, they're struggling, they're stressed, and they have anxiety because of those physical aspects. Maybe at home, they don't have a good support network. And so that can cause problems. Their career goals, they don't have an outline of what it is they want to be in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. And so that causes stress. So we wanted to give them a tool that really helped them define what all of the aspects of wellness really meant. And we think that we've landed on a pretty good one with the 8 dimensions of wellness.
Mm-hmm. How do you assess? Do you have any assessment tools, or is this kind of just a philosophy that you've all mutually adopted? I'm just curious.
No, it's a great question. So one of the things that we do is we, on a routine basis, once a year, twice a year, during meetings, during one nice thing in a small department, I'm able to cook dinners for all of our crews twice a year. And we sit down around the kitchen table. It's not bologna sandwiches, I promise. We just talk about how things are going in their life, how things are going at work, what I can do better to serve them. And one of the tools that we have, it's sort of a matrix of the 8 dimensions. And we ask people to self-report, not give it to me, not give it to their officer, but just self-report and say on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing in each one of those areas? And it never fails. You always get those kind of light bulb moments, those aha moments where someone will say, wow, I really haven't thought much about my career lately. I'm comfortable doing what I'm doing. I like being a firefighter. I want to be a great firefighter, but I don't want to retire as a firefighter. I want to retire as a lieutenant or a battalion chief or what have you. So it's an opportunity for them to self-reflect and kind of look at the areas where it's basically a wheel with 0 in the middle and 10 on the outside. And they find those little spots where there might be a little divot in their wheel. And it's an opportunity to kind of work on that.
Mm-hmm. I think, that self-awareness piece of, not even turning it into anyone, of just, and then they're self-motivated, right, to change, to make some changes, I think. And I've heard you mention in another interview the importance of the self-help aspect of wellness, of having an autonomous strategy, or, that is just as important as kind of what I would call like a mutual strategy, like therapy or, peer support. Can you kind of speak to that kind of self-stewardship piece, and how and why you discovered that was important and relevant?
It was literally, I was preparing for a podcast a few months ago, and we were talking about our TM program, our Transcendental Meditation program. And, I was brainstorming, why is that important to people? And it hit me as a guy who's been around for a long time. Probably about 25 years ago, I was a lieutenant at South Metro here in Colorado. And we were teaching a lot. We were really going down the path of saving our own training, Mayday training, rapid intervention teams, and did a lot of training in that area, and the importance of having a team or having a group of firefighters that was well prepared to come in and save us when we were trapped inside of a burning building. I'm a huge advocate of that training and having that level of awareness. But fast forward about 10 years ago, and a man by the name of Don Abbott did a grant-funded study on Maydays in the American Fire Service. And over the course of about 10 years, he studied 12,000 Maydays. And what he found was that about 50% of our successful outcome Maydays, firefighters that were able to survive the incident and get out, 1/2 of them self-rescued. Mm-hmm. About 40% were rescued by their adjoining team members, and about 10% or less were saved by outside resources. So that rapid intervention team or a heavy rescue team that came in with specialized equipment to take care of them.
Mhm.
And I had an aha moment, and I said, I think that that's a lot of what we need in the American Fire Service. I think that we need self-rescue first. We need that self-awareness that we're struggling. We need the tools to build our own personal resilience. And that's going to take care of a large portion of our issues. And the analogy I would use, Jess, would be all of us probably have, myself in the last week, have driven down the road, and all of a sudden, because of lack of self-awareness, all of a sudden our low fuel alarm goes off, our little light on our dashboard. And even though we've got 50 miles to go, there is suddenly a ramp up of stress and anxiety. Oh my God, how am I going to fix this? How am I going to take care of this? And if we have some self-awareness and we can fix that problem, we can fill up our tank long before that alarm goes off, I think we're going to be in better shape. So really, I think that that's where we want to start. And then there's some additional things when we talk about our internal culture in our organization.
Mhm. Yeah, and when you look at community risk reduction, and if we were to kind of turn the lens towards the fire service, the self-rescue techniques, that is primary risk reduction, right? And then, your buddy would be secondary, and then the RIT team, to use your analogy, are tertiary strategies, right? And yes, we're all about that here at Firepower X. So we call it self-command. And I find that finally the fire service, we're still looking for terms for this, and self-awareness would go with meditation and kind of TM. You could even call it stoicism. You can call it mental performance. We're just now, I feel, and I'm curious your opinion on this, trying to put language to it, because that is really, I think, helps people get on the same page about this being a strategy, and then everybody starting to then adopt it. Is that kind of what you're seeing too in your experience, or?
Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned stoicism. I on my nightstand is a copy of Meditations from Marcus Aurelius, and kind of the king, if you will, of the guy who put it down on paper in many ways. And so much of that book is really about an emperor's self-awareness of where they're struggling mentally, physically, anxiety, stress, etc. And I think it starts before even having the tools of meditation or whatever else we do. I think it is the awareness that we need to know something about ourselves, and a recognition of how we're reacting to the stress in the moment. What is setting it, those triggers, those buttons that we all know we have, but recognizing when they get pushed, and then how to take those moments in time. It's Viktor Frankl, right? It's Viktor Frankl talking about between an event and our reaction is this amount of time, and how we use that time is really what sort of dictates our success with that event.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. I think that's great, because it is true. And if we don't have that time, I call it the gap. If we don't have that gap, then we are essentially a slave to our own mental habits, right? Our own old reactions, how we, like you said, our triggers, we just play them out again and again. And so building that time of the gap. Speaking of which, let's kind of loop TM into this. How did TM, you guys brought it on, integrated it into your department. How did TM kind of emerge as a good strategy for this kind of self-rescue, the things that we've been talking about?
So it started with myself, just a recognition as I went through that exercise that we talked about earlier, that level of spirituality and self-awareness and just mental health was an area that I knew I could do some improvement in. And I think, like many people today, if you had said meditation 40 years ago in the fire service, people would have looked at you like, but today our firefighters are more educated and more open, I think, to the ideas of some tools. So knowing that I needed something, like many of us, right, I went to the phone and had an app and looked at YouTube videos and tried a bunch of different things. What I found for myself, and I think that many people, from my understanding, from what I hear from people, I don't know if I'm doing it right. I'm listening to a video, I'm listening to an app. Is it working? Am I messing this up? And so was looking for some answers, and also, like many firefighters, listened to so many podcasts, yours included, and and so many different things. And I was listening to a podcaster that I listened to frequently was interviewing another podcaster that I listened to frequently, and he asked him a question: "Do you meditate?" And the answer was yes. And he said, "What type of meditation do you do?" He says, "I do TM, I do transcendental meditation." And I joke with it, up until that day, I don't think I could spell TM. And so next thing I know, I'm Google searching, and it's a Sunday, and I'm having my cup of coffee in bed, and I'm listening to this podcast. And I said, wow, this sounds interesting to me. So I found a local instructor here in Northern Colorado, just a fantastic instructor who's been teaching since the early 70s and was teaching in universities and was teaching to the military. And I signed up for the class. I paid for myself to go to a TM class. I literally went the next week. That's how excited I was about learning. And after the course and after a couple of weeks, I thought, boy, there's an angle here for firefighters in general. Well, that led me to Google once again. And I said, there's got to be someone out there that's trying this in the fire service. And sure enough, I landed at the FDNY and found that they were utilizing it as part of their counseling service unit. And they were using it, and they still are strictly using it for their substance abuse program. So firefighters who are struggling with substance abuse, they sign up for the program. They're taken offline for a period of time. And as part of that program, they can learn TM. So fast forward, met with FDNY, met with a couple of their counselors and the success that they were having, met with the organization that is partnering with the FDNY. And we ended up bringing that foundation, the David Lynch Foundation, out to Front Range. Is anyone interested? We sent out an email. If someone would like to volunteer, we'll pay for your class, and the rest is history.
And for those who aren't familiar with the success you've had with TM at your department, can you, in a nutshell, just kind of tell us what you're doing, how you're using TM?
Yeah. So far, we've had 2 classes that have gone through. We're a smaller department. We've only got about 35 members. So far, about half of those members have gone through the TM training. We bring the instructors out there, generally speaking, from the East or West Coast. They come out, they teach a 4-day class. Each individual member that signs up for the class has an hour-and-a-half training session with the instructor one-on-one. And that's day 1. We run 8 people through the program on day 1. And then on day 2, 3, and 4, they're group sessions where they learn more about the techniques. They learn kind of coaching, if you will, to make sure that they know that they're doing it correctly, or, there's some areas for improvement or what have you. And then there's check-ins. So after that course, at the 10-day portion, there's another check-in with the instructor. At the 1 month, there's a check-in, and at the 3 month, there's a check-in. So far, with the individuals that have gone through the program, 80% have reported that they have less fatigue. 80% have reported that they sleep better. 73% report that they are less stressed. 60% have reported that they have improved relationships at home or at work. And 100% have said that they've had at least one of those things. So pretty good success so far.
That's amazing. And I love that you're kind of doing the statistical measurements to make sure, because then that reinforces like, yes, this is working for us. And I am curious for those, and I wasn't quite as familiar with TM before you and I started talking, but how is TM different than other types of meditations for people who have dabbled in it? I'm just curious.
It's a great, and from the science perspective, I feel like I'm constantly in scientific journals looking at TM. In essence, there are three forms of meditation, but again, if you did a little Google search, you'd get 3, 12, 50, 100 different types of meditation, but they can be broken down on the portion of your brain that is most affected. And so TM is a methodology of really not focusing on anything in particular other than a specific word referred to as a mantra. And the instructor gives you a mantra, and the mantra doesn't mean anything. It's a word. It's an ancient Sanskrit word. My word would be different than yours. The instructors kind of pick those. And the idea is that you don't have to concentrate. So literally just before we went on the air today, I did my 20-minute meditation, and probably like all of us, little things would pop up. I was thinking about what we might talk about today. I was thinking about a project that I have to accomplish by the end of the week. I was thinking about my grocery list, and those things just kind of pop in. And what's interesting about TM is you don't have to focus on getting rid of them. That's just part of the process. That it's there, and you might forget to say the mantra for a couple of minutes. And next thing you know, you become aware that you've given up on the mantra. And so you come back to it. And next thing you know, the mantra is there and it goes away and you're quiet. And then a thought pops up, and then you kind of go through this cycle. What's different compared to many forms of meditation where you have to focus on something, the portion of your brain when you're focused on something is much like if you were given a difficult math problem. If I gave you a word problem where you had to concentrate, most likely the gamma portion of your brain waves would be activated because you're concentrating, you're focused. And that's okay for focus. And if that's your goal, is to focus, that's a good meditation to do before you do that difficult project. But if you're looking to reduce stress, this is a portion of your brain that it reduces anxiety. And again, back to the clearing your mind of some of those stresses and portions of anxiety that we all experience.
It's I like the effortless part of that, of just the repetitive, right, of the mantra. And I think I heard once your mantra, you keep the mantra for infinity. Does it never change, or can you pick a new mantra? I'm just curious about that.
Secret for life. Yeah, it's pretty
Okay.
interesting. My admin director went through the course, and she had gone home, and she mentioned it to her husband, who's a retired firefighter. And she said, "Oh, I learned transcendental meditation today." And he goes, "Oh, I learned that." And she said, "When?" And he said, "Oh, back in the mid 80s, I learned it before they had even known each other." And she goes, "Do you remember your mantra?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I can remember it right now." And he hadn't meditated in quite a long time. So yes, it's sort of locked in there in a weird, strange way. So.
And I really appreciate your approach to kind of getting the buy-in with your TM program, because offering it instead of mandating it.
Oh, yeah.
Can you kind of can you touch briefly on that, just as a leader, how that strategy has worked for you?
I think a lot of your listeners will relate to what I'm about to say. I spent, I don't know, 30 years, give or take, maybe a little bit less than that, 28 years in a firehouse as a firefighter, as a company officer. And most of us sit around the firehouse at some point when it's a slow day. Today is not one of those days, but when it's a slow day, we've got a little bit of time to kill. Sometimes we sit around the kitchen table and we have what I would refer to as fixing sessions, right? We've got a lot of great ideas around the firehouse kitchen table. And well, I heard this, or my friend works at this department, this is what they do. And we should try this. And how come those chiefs don't always listen to us? And what I'm going to tell your listeners is they were right. That there are some great answers around the firehouse kitchen table. And all a leader has to do is listen to those ideas and run with them. As long as we can afford them, as long as we can find some evidence and some data to support it, my answer is always going to be yes. Once in a while, I can't afford it, or once in a while, we've got some other priorities and we have to put it on the back burner, but we'll try that at some other time. And last year, we had some great ideas come up about doing an education program to help our firefighters become more bilingual and speak Spanish on medical calls. We had to put that on the back burner, but we're starting that program in the first half of this year. So there's a lot of great ideas. And what I find is if we throw it out as a research program and say, does anyone want to try this? Does anyone want to learn this? We've got some great firefighters that want to sign up and give it a try. And then they're going to give us honest feedback about whether or not it's valuable and we should continue the program. And that's one of the things that we found with TM is that when we asked that question, 100% said that we should continue offering it. So
that's great. I'm sure the people whose ideas they are often willing to help spearhead it too. Like, go do some research for me, or go, because they're naturally motivated to prove that their idea is a good one. So.
Absolutely, and they come back with these just fantastic reports after the fact with the data and the costs and how we should move forward. And it's just, you just have to open the door and ask if anyone's interested. And I'm really lucky that I'm in a department that is very open. The firefighters are very open to new and exciting ideas. I'll just say that, a lot of fire departments are hiring right now. And it's a great place to get a job if you're a young firefighter and you're volunteer and looking to become a career, or you're in a smaller department, you're looking to go to a different department, or you're looking to make a change in your life. There's so many departments out there. And what I would really encourage anyone to do is if you're looking at a fire department and they're advertising about the tool that they use or the tactic that they use, ask yourself if that's the place you want to be, or if you want to be in a place that's open to trying anything and cares about your health span, your longevity, and your wellness. That's what I think we should be looking for if I'm looking to go to an agency, not what type of nozzle they have or what type of helmet they wear.